Everyone, this is Donna, the Technology and Media Librarian for Upper Arlington Public Library. In this video, we're going to talk about organizing your computer files and folders so that you're able to organize your files by their type, organize them by their category, and find files more easily. So in this video, we'll be discussing some tips for creating a new folder system, some tips for naming files and folders consistently, and how to do those things, and how to move your files and folders using shortcuts so that you're able to access files quickly and easily. Now, one of the advantages of file organization, and the reason I'm doing this video, is to help you plan ahead for your future. So if at some later date you need a new computer, if at some later date you need to transfer existing files that are on your computer, or as you're starting to create and receive files through email or through your own software programs, you're able to move entire folders without worrying about sorting through what's relevant and what's irrelevant at that later date. So let's go ahead and get started on organizing your computer files and folders. So as you can see, this is just a sample computer desktop background. I am using for this video a Windows 10 PC. So this might look very similar to your own desktop. What you'll see here on the screen are icons that represent software program files, icons that represent files that you've created, produced, downloaded, and so forth. And you'll also see down at the very bottom of the screen something called File Explorer, and File Explorer is probably what you're most familiar with when it comes to interacting with your files and folders. If you've ever needed to organize your files or locate them on a flash drive, external storage, and so forth, this is the view that you're most likely to see on a Windows computer. What File Explorer allows you to do is navigate the different areas of storage within your computer. Now, your PC is the major organizational system. It's the entire computer and whatever subsections are available inside that computer, and then you'll be able to navigate to each of those. So if you plug in a flash drive, that's now considered an extension of your computer, and therefore you can navigate to that using File Explorer. Your desktop is an area of File Explorer, the Documents folder, pictures, videos, and so forth. Those are subsections of your computer and its organization that are depicted visually by File Explorer, but that are also searchable using File Explorer. And what you can also do is customize the view on all of these folders by creating your own and putting them in different storage locations in your computer. So when it comes to setting up your first set of folders, you want to consider how you work. There's many ways that you can organize your files. A lot of those ways are extremely personal, and they all depend on the types of files that you yourself have created. But there are different file hierarchies that you can set up depending on how you like to organize your information. That could be by topic, by file type, by the person who's created it, by the users in your household who are sharing your computer. So while you're thinking about that, you do want to ask yourself some questions about what would be the most basic organizational levels for you. What do your categories represent? That would be your folder name, where will you store your folders, and then you'll actually work to create the folders themselves. Once you've considered how you're going to organize, then you're going to decide on your main organizational scheme. And then what we want to keep in mind at this point is that the first folders that you create are going to be the very top of that folder organizational scheme. So you want them to be as broad as possible while still being identifiable. In the example computer that I have here, I see that there's a common theme among all of the files here on the desktop. They're all obviously work related, so calling my main folder work would really not apply here. It wouldn't make too much sense because all of them technically fit into that category. But I'm looking for some commonalities, and what I see are copies of presentations that I've done. I see copies of handouts for individual programs that I've done. And then I see a lot of photos that I use when I'm teaching programs or providing examples in programs. So really, all files are related to programs. So I might just skip creating a basic programming folder and then divide them into the three types that I've seen noted here on the screen. So in this case, I'd make three main categories: one I would call presentations, one I would call handouts, and one I would call example photos. So now that I've decided on my names and I've decided on what my three main folders are going to be, let's go ahead and create them. So in this example, I'm going to create my three basic folders, the ones that are at the very top of my folder hierarchy, and I'm going to do these on the desktop. For one thing, that keeps all of my information visible to me. So when you open up your computer, I'll immediately see those folders on the desktop, on the background of my computer, the first thing that I see. So to do this, we'll navigate to our File Explorer, we'll select our desktop location, In the display view on the right side of File Explorer, we'll right-click and select New Folder from that shortcut menu. Then we'll go ahead and name the folder. So again, in this example we're using for the program, I'm going to title my first folder Presentations. You can also create a folder in File Explorer through your Home tab. I prefer the right-click method only because it means less sorting through tabs. That's strictly a personal preference. Always use the gestures that make the process most comfortable for you. And then once you have your folder structure in place, you can start moving files to the appropriate categories. You can use the drag and drop method. You can also cut and paste your files from one location to another, but I'm going to use the drag and drop method. So to do that, you'll use the left button on your mouse to click once on a file. Click and hold the left button on your mouse, and as you're holding, go ahead and drag the mouse to move the file towards the folder where you want to place it, and then let go of that left button once your file is in the appropriate folder. There's also subfolders that you can use, and those will help you further organize your files because otherwise all of the files would be in one of those main categories. So it doesn't really address the organizational issues you're experiencing as much as it just moves them around. So subfolders will help you group similar files within the main folder hierarchy. And creating subfolders for those main folders is the same process as we just experienced. So remember that desktop and documents are just folders within your PC overall. Now your folders are nested within desktop, nested within your computer, and you can even expand that folder hierarchy to see how they're nested. So when you add a subfolder to your main organizational folder, just make sure that you're naming them consistently so that the contents are instantly recognizable to you. So what we'll do is we'll follow the same process we did for our main folders. We'll open the main folder. In the display area, we'll right-click or use the Home tab to create a new folder, and then we'll name our subfolder. And that subfolder will be automatically created within the main folder because that was our starting point. And you can create as many subfolders with as much depth as is necessary to organize your files. So what's important for a naming convention when it comes to files isn't necessarily what you call your files so much as it is about consistency, because that will help you organize new files as you create them, new files as you receive them, because you'll know where and how each of those files should fit into your organizational system. And it will help you identify and distinguish files from one another at a glance. So here are some things to think about when it comes to naming your files. One option for basic naming is the type of file, one is the subject or the topic of the file, and one is the date. Now, when I say type of file, I don't mean PDF versus Word versus JPEG versus PNG. There's nothing to do with the format of your file or the software programs that you would use to open that file. When I say the type of file, I mean the actual purpose of it. What is the purpose of this file? Is it a presentation? Is it a proposal? Is it a resume? Is it financial paperwork? Including the purpose of your file in its name, again, distinguishes it from other files, and it will help you group common files together. So if, for example, you have a lot of tax documentation on your computer, that probably warrants a folder in and of itself. Along those same lines, you also want to include in a file name some indication of what the contents of this particular file are. What is its subject? What is this file about? And that's how you'll know what makes it different from other files with a similar purpose grouped in the same folder. It may be helpful to think of this as the subject heading of your file. So again, let's say our files are all tax related. The name should include the purpose of the file, but it should also include something that tells you what makes this one different from all of the others. So be descriptive in your choice of keywords. The subject phrases give you an idea of what to expect when you open this file, and later they'll help you search for a specific file. Adding dates to your file names is another good way to keep track of files beyond the date that you created them. If you use a date structure, always be mindful that you use the same structure for all the files that are within that particular folder. On File Explorer, you can see the last date on which your file was modified, but that's not always the date that you created a file, or made the presentation that you're pulling up, or made a critical edit versus a spelling change. If the date of a file has significance to you, add it to the name and be consistent about how you format that date. Because one advantage of using the same date structure is that if you have two files with the same purpose and two files with the same purpose and the same subject, the date will sort automatically in order when you sort your files alphabetically, and therefore will give you a sense of which one came first and which one came later chronologically. If you're creating a sequence of files, let's say a different file for each chapter of a book that you're writing or a manuscript that you're working on, make sure you name your sequences in the same ways. And the same applies for different versions of the same file, version 1, version 2, and so forth. And finally, you've likely already noticed in my examples that I've separated keywords using an underscore. The reason I do that is that not every software program can read spaces in file names. So if you need to separate words for legibility, you can use underscores or you can use dashes between words, and this will allow a software program to read your file name while you can also read your file name. So now that we've talked about different ways to name your files, let's see it in practice. We're going to rename the real files that I've used here as examples. To rename a file, you would right-click on the selected file, and then you can add the keywords of your choice. You can add underscores or dashes between words. We can add our dates, and then we can rearrange them to demonstrate how they'll look when they're in alphabetical order. And we'll be able to see at a glance what precisely these files are about and how they're different from the other files that are in the same subfolder. Using the search features of your computer's operating system works well to help you find your files if you know what you're looking for and if you've created strong and memorable ways to name or date your files. And that can mean the difference between finding the right file immediately and finding the wrong file and starting over. It can save you a lot of time. So in order to search, we'll open File Explorer, or if you have a particular folder open, your search will be limited to that folder and that folder alone. And in the File Explorer search box, begin typing the first few letters of the file name, and you'll see the search results begin to populate. But when you find your prospective file and you're not sure where precisely it's located, you can right-click on the file from your results, and from that menu of shortcuts, click on Open File Location. The File Explorer window will show you the directory to which that selected file belongs. You can even see the file path along the very top of the File Explorer window. And keep in mind that that file path is clickable. You can actually go through the nested folders to the very first folder for that particular file. And that's it for organizing files and folders. If you have questions or if you'd like to contact us here in the Media Services Department, our contact information is on the screen now. And don't forget to click on the description below the video because we've linked to some resources that will help you continue to create a structured and organized file scheme. Thank you so much for watching.